we are. This is Trisha Schmalhofer here with Leah Williamson on BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Trisha.
Leah is like a top fan of BAM, I just have to say.
It's totally true. Since I found out about it, I've just been listening to it all the time. I've listened to every podcast. They're awesome.
She's our super fan.
I am a super fan.
You know, and I'm a super fan of Leah because, Leah, I first met you 2 years ago. I was thinking about this. And it was one of the times, there's been many of these waves that never come forth, but I was going to start a wellness center of my own. And this comes up every once in a while in the sea of chi of my life. And your resume got in front of me and I said, "Ooh, she does Qi Gong and Tai Chi and she's a massage therapist. We can have classes at the center." I called you, we set up an interview. First time ever interviewing people, by the way. And you had a family thing that you're like, I just found out I have to go to North Carolina and I'm not going to be able to meet you because I'm like running around. I go, "No, come in. I want to meet you." She goes, "I don't know if I'm going to be able to like get a job with you." And I'm like, "I don't care. I want to interview you." Yeah. And she comes in and we did whatever. And I remember I asked, if you had to be a color, if you were a color, what would it be? And I don't remember what you said, but you're like,
I do.
What is it?
I'd be every color because they're all fabulous.
That is what you said.
Yeah.
And you said, and we were interviewing, she goes, "This is the most unique interview I've ever been on." And I just started laughing. I'm like, welcome to my world, because that's just how I am. Because I wanted questions that not only where you were talking about skills, but made you go in, right?
Yeah.
And search in there. And that really is what Tai Chi is, the yin and the yang. Is it yang or yang?
Well, I've always heard it as yan, and I said it as yan for a long time, but people didn't know what I was saying, so I had to change how I said it to yang, because Westerners understand
like
yang. Yeah.
Like a twang.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2 years, and she comes to speak at an event I was at, and I went up. I'm like, "I don't know if you remember me, but you know," and one of your Tai Chi students is one of my clients, so I would hear about, "Oh, Leah's teaching this and Leah's doing that," and I'm like, "I know her." So I almost like always felt like we were gonna come back together, and then when you were a speaker, I went up. I'm like, "Be on my podcast." So here we are.
And I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So you're welcome. My pleasure. So Leah, we're going to talk a little bit about your book now, Surfing the Sea of Chi, and it's up on the screen. I don't need to hold it up because it's actually up on the banner for those of you that are watching on video on YouTube or Facebook. But it has really cool colors. It's orange with yellow writing, and then it's the ocean, and it has Leah. That's actually you on that picture, right?
Yes, it is.
I think that's so cool. And she's on a surfboard, and she has like the Chinese hat on, like that the workers in the fields always wear, you know?
Exactly.
Right? And then you're doing a hand position. What do you call that you're doing?
That would be a greeting or a salutation or a bow. There's an informal bow we use where we use the right hand in a fist, because in every culture that is strength and power, right? And then the left hand, when the fingers are close together, that means we're friends. When the fingers are apart, that means we are not friends.
Oh.
So we put them close together, hopefully.
Okay.
We bring in the thumb. That means respect. And then we kind of put the striking part of the fist in the center of the palm. And it's basically a nonverbal way of saying together we meet in the strength of friendship, humility, and respect.
How lovely is that? And so, and it's interesting because in your book, you're sharing how you stand on a surfboard is actually a stance in Tai Chi.
Yes, the bow stance is used basically a stance that you use in surfing, snowboarding, anything where you're on a board and you're kind of in a side stance. You're in a bow stance or a baijian stance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm feeling like we should talk a little bit about the technicalities of the book, like, the questions of, did you write it like all in one sitting, or was it kind of like a journaling process? How did that come about?
That's a really interesting question. I did not intend to write a book. I started surfing and noticed all these parallels with the Tai Chi practice and Qigong. So I just started making notes about the parallels between the two. And then I had an injury. I get injured a lot because I do a lot of kind of crazy things with my body.
You're an active gal.
I am quite active, and because of that, I occasionally get injured. And I had gotten injured, and I couldn't work. I couldn't do the things I normally do, and I was rehabbing. So I thought, I'm going to look at all these notes I wrote. And I started to put them together. And over the course of those 6 weeks that I was healing, I kept getting woke up in the middle of the night at like 2, 3 in the morning, usually around 2:30 or 3, with all these words just pouring through my head about the book. And I could not go back to sleep. I wouldn't write it down, but I couldn't go back to sleep. And finally, after a couple days of this, I went, okay, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to get up and start writing all this stuff in my head. And it just poured out.
Yep.
It was almost as though it was channeled through me.
And writers say that a lot. That we call it downloads in the spiritual. You were getting downloads, and the chi was moving through you, even in that, of getting it out there. So the book kind of wrote itself with your notes as like the little bullet points.
It did. There was, the first draft, and then of course I go back and make changes. So it's not.
Then there's the technical,
and all that stuff,
the verbiage, the grammar, and all that. It's a long process. I participated in a book anthology of different women, and from one writer to another, when the book comes out, like, how cool is it to actually feel your book in your hands, right?
It's amazing.
And like, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like my creation. Like, I birthed this, right? And especially with you on the cover, which I think even makes it more, I don't know, some kind of connection. But did you, I noticed when people were actually reading it and coming back and giving me their feedback, it was almost like, for me, it's like it didn't even really dawn on me that people are actually going to read my book and it's going to affect them. And how that felt, it's very vulnerable, right? And then we were talking ahead of this, and I'm like, this book potentially could be really big because it has really cool concepts in it. And I think it's in alignment with a lot of shifts that are happening now, vibrational shifts. People are ready to hear this, right? And need what you have to say. So there's a potential for you to, be famous or whatever. And you're like, well, I don't want to be famous. I want the book to be famous.
The
right?
message. Yeah, I want to get the message out there. It's not really about me. It's about everybody coming together as one and doing their part to create a better world.
So if you said that was the message of the book, the core message, that's what it was?
There's a lot of core messages in there. I mean, there's layers.
Self-responsibility is a big one, a big theme throughout the book, that we need to be responsible for our own selves.
Yes.
So I think what we need to do now is to define what chi is, since that's the title of the book, so people can kind of get on board with, what is the C of chi? What is chi? Because that's going to be coming up a lot in our conversation.
Well, there's different ways to define chi. Most people define it as energy, right? Energy can be in you, it can be outside you, it can be anywhere. You can also define chi as your breath, which is a common way to look at it. And when you think of breath as being energy, it's both in you and out of you. So that is the same connection with chi being inside and outside. But basically, it's life force energy. Chi is. Yeah.
Yeah. So ki is the Japanese word for it. So Reiki people that do Reiki are working with this. Prana is the Indian way. Even if you want to look at, Holy Spirit or just good vibes, right?
Yeah.
All of it. Any kind of energy healing or just basically chi is everywhere and it flows in and out of everything.
Yes. Everywhere, all the time, constantly moving, hopefully moving, because stagnation of chi is where we have illness and disease.
Yes, dis-ease.
Dis-ease, yes.
Stagnation, yeah. Sometimes I find chi gets stuck and there's like too much somewhere. Not enough one place, too much somewhere else, and that can be inflammatory. And it is a lot like, in one of my meditations, I was by Turkey Creek. I was in Turkey Creek Sanctuary, and I was looking at the creek and the water, and I got a download, and it was kind of like, water never really ends. Like, even the air is water. It's a type of water. It's fluid. It just has a different density. And, underwater, the waves, and we're going to talk about with surfing, that's a real big thing of really just that sea of chi. Just you got to the point from being deathly afraid of water to actually like being one with it. And it's the same out here in the air. It's all chi.
Yeah.
There's waves, there's currents, there's sharks.
On land too, yes.
That's what I'm
they
saying.
just don't have fins, yes.
Yeah. So chi really is everywhere. These waves and ebbs and flows are in everything, and probably even out like when you're getting into the etheric realms and the galaxy and all that. It's all chi.
Yes. That's my take on chi anyway. Everyone has different opinion about these really big concepts, right? And how to define them. But
sure.
That's my take on chi.
Yeah. The human brain has to break it down and make it, packaged. But I think this is a good definition where I'm in agreement. So what is then the Tao? T-A-O. That's a big question.
Well, I'll answer it the way it should be answered. The Tao that can be told is not the real Tao. I can't tell you what the Tao is. It's impossible to define. It's impossible to explain. All we can do is get little glimpses of it here and there. Basically, the Tao is everything that there is. Mm-hmm. And our little tiny minds can't even conceive of everything that there is. We just see a little tiny portion of our world. I mean, our eyes only perceive, I think, a third of the light spectrum. So even our visual acuity is not so great when it comes to knowing the Tao and what's in our realm of existence. So the Tao is everything.
It is. And it's not a religion. Some people say like Taoists, it's not a religion. It's really just it's more like a way of life. A way of perceiving things.
A philosophy.
Philosophy. That's a good word.
There is actually a Taoist religion.
Is there?
Yeah. My take on this is that it's very small. Generally, Taoism is considered a philosophy and not a religion. But there is a small Taoist sect that's a church. And my take on it is they became so in love with the chi that they had to turn it into a religion.
Right. Yeah. And it really probably just so they can share it. They can roll around in it and then share it with others. Yeah.
So they can conceptualize it and put labels on it and organize it. That's, how the human mind tends to organize things.
Yeah. Our logical brain does need that sometimes. Yeah. It's about balance, which we're going to talk about. We're going to do a quick break, though. And before we go to the actual break, we're going to just highlight Leah Williamson's book, The Surfing the Sea of Chi. You have 2 book signings scheduled. Where are they?
So the first one is at the Cocoa Beach Public Library. That's a Thursday, February 13th from 3 to 4. And then the second one is in March on a Sunday at the Melbourne Fee Avenue Library, March 22nd. That's at 1:30. They're both going to be about an hour. And the plan is to do a very small book signing, a very small talk, and spend most of the time introducing people to Qigong.
Yes. Qigong, and we're gonna get into what is Qigong, what is Tai Chi, and how surfing kind of came into her whole world when we get back. And I just want to put out, she's open to do book signing. So what is your website if they want to get in touch to book a book signing for you across the country? By the way, not limited to Florida.
My website is beachsideqigong.com. That's beachside QIGONG.com.
You heard it here, folks. See you in a minute.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Hello, America. I'm Kid Chronic,
And I'm Trees. You're listening to the Ruthless Politics Podcast.
where we bring you ruthlessly sharp political commentary every Tuesday.
Listen every week and become that much smarter.
This ain't your daddy's political roundtable, folks.
Folks,
Hello, America. We are Ruthless Politics, Vladimir Putin's favorite podcast.
hello, American podcast listeners. I am Vladimir Putin. I like this podcast. I like this guy Trees. Kid Groning, not so much.
Tune in every Tuesday for Ruthless Politics Podcast, live from Moscow. Just kidding, folks. Live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios in sunny Florida.
No, but for real, every Tuesday, check it out. And you could see it on the YouTube, the Facebook, and the Twitter and Instagram.
All right, we're back. This is Trisha here with Leah Williamson on BAM Badasses, Alchemist Mystics. So Leah wrote a book, Surfing the Sea of Chi, that just came out the end of 2019, right?
Yep, the end of November, yep.
So, so the basic fundamentals of this, of how I've read the book, I really like it. As I'm reading it, I'm getting little spiritual awakenings. So I'm like, she's talking about binary codes, and I've been hearing about binary codes, and I've always been into the yin and yang. And the yin yang symbol is not called the yin yang symbol; it's called the Tai Chi. Tai Chi is the technical name, right?
Yeah.
So the basic idea behind that is that we need both in this world.
Yes, both positive and negative, both male and female, both empty and full in order to complete. That symbol actually represents what the Tao is. Everything, all combined together.
And, you know, for those watching, your symbol's on its side for your, I always see it, right, straight up and down, the vertical, but you have it horizontally, which I like.
Yeah, just
Is there a reason for that?
because if I was going to put words on it, wouldn't make sense to have the words two different colors. People wouldn't be able to read it.
That's so funny. I thought it was something deeper.
No, it had to do with the words that I laid on the symbol.
I'm like, it must mean like more balance or what they're equal.
No.
But okay.
Because in a very traditional dojo, you might see that symbol like on the wall, but it's on a spindle because it'll spin.
See, and that
because it does not matter which side is up and which is down.
because it changes.
Because it's always changing.
It's always changing. So this is everyone knows this symbol now, you know, and it's depicted with white and black. But you were saying in your book, red and blue a lot of times were the colors for red for yang, blue for yin.
Yeah.
But you talk about stillness in motion when you were talking about Qigong in the book. And I know, it's like, how do we present? Well, I like this. So the Qigong is how you move Qi It's like, it's a practice. Is that the one that has like the breathing and the massage?
Yes,
And what are the 4 components of Qigong?
The 4 tools used by Qigong. So Qigong basically can be defined as energy work or energy discipline.
Qi being energy, Gong being
Gong
work.
being work or discipline. And you put them together and you have Qigong, which is energy, the discipline of energy healing. And it's healing yourself primarily. It's not, some people do Qigong healing where they're working with other people, but primarily it's about healing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with this...
and the 4 tools. Yeah, the 4
Yeah,
tools
the 4
that you
tools.
use in Qigong are breath work, visualization, massage, and specific movements, which is how most people identify Qigong and Tai Chi, by how people are moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Qigong is the kind of the self-care practice, where the Tai Chi is actually a martial art.
Correct.
Okay.
But also a self-care practice.
Okay. But they kind of, because I used to be confused about the difference. I thought they were both kind of the same thing, but different branches or different sources. But now I know that's not true.
They have more in common, Qigong and Tai Chi, than they do different from each other.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we define Qigong. So what do you want to say about Tai Chi?
You could look at Tai Chi as very complex Qigong that can also be used to defend yourself.
Okay.
That's kind of the difference, if you had to define it.
Okay. So as, you know, even though you're moving slowly, right? In
Yes.
Tai Chi,
Yes.
you had said something in a class that I took that in the Chinese, they developed Tai Chi to be under the radar. So it was basically teaching martial arts, but in a way that wasn't being detected
Yes.
by whoever, the powers that be.
So, being so ancient, there's even debate about how old Tai Chi is. No one can really tell you how old it is. You look at different authoritative sources and they'll tell you completely different things. But one story that I heard passed down was that there was a cultural revolution in China, and a different emperor took power and decided to outlaw martial arts, because if you knew martial arts, you could overtake
Uprise, yeah.
you could overtake the government. So the masters decided to hide their martial arts in Qigong, so that they didn't look like martial arts. They looked more like, oh, they're just, working on breathing and keeping balanced. It didn't look like they were learning how to fight. So that's one way of viewing Tai Chi.
See, I think that's a badass view.
It is. It really is.
Because it's like, we're still going to teach this, but I like when stuff's under the radar. It's like
Yeah.
you're going to still do what you feel like you need to do to help people and to live your purpose, and spread something that is like vital to life, and do it in a way that's
Undetectable.
it's
Yeah.
badass.
That's one of the things I like about that story, is that it really tells you a lot about what Tai Chi is. It's not what it looks like. I've had so many people come up to me and like, that's moving slow. That's for old people. And I'm like, that's because
no
you
idea.
don't understand, because you've never tried it. You've never done it. It's much more than what it looks like. It's multi-layered.
Hidden in plain sight.
Oh, yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Hidden in plain sight. Because I think that happens everywhere.
Oh,
Things are
yeah.
hidden in plain sight all the time, but we get caught in the yang cycle of busy, busy, do, that we don't stop and become aware and observe and take notice. And that's a big theme in your book. And that then ties back into the Tai Chi symbol and the yin and the yang and the balance. And the Tai Chi practice, it's movement, therefore it's yang, but it's also a slow, it was that stillness in motion, right?
Yes.
There's a yin aspect, and I'm like going like this, but it's in there, you know. It's the two dancing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One of my favorite teachers, in fact, my favorite teacher ever, Grandmaster Jeff Cook, he put it like this. He's a master of 5 different martial arts, not just Tai Chi, but some really brutal martial arts as well. And he put it like this. Tai Chi could be considered kind of a superior martial art because you learn how to flow and stay calm and relaxed, even though you might be engaged in fighting. So that's the stillness within, the calm, the peace that you're holding while you're engaged in combat.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, carrying that over into life, well, we're going to get into carrying it over into surfing in a minute, but carrying it over into life, that's really how we should, without trying, I don't like that word, but would benefit us to walk around with that stillness and that calm and that lower dantian, right?
Oh,
or
my
there's the
goodness.
lower, the
Yes,
middle, and the upper
yes.
dantian, or the energy centers, but yet still moving through life, still
Yeah.
doing the actions.
We can't always be still and meditative, right? We have to go,
No.
we have to be in life, be part of life, which is
Right.
being active. But we also have to be able to hold our peace and our calm. So vital nowadays with all of the stress and fear that we find around us, to be able to hold our center and our peace while we're out in the world that is sometimes quite chaotic and stressful, especially hurricane season. Holy cow,
Right.
is that stressful? You
Right.
got to
It is.
maintain your peace and center within yourself moving forward in life.
So there's 2 ways we could go with this, because on one hand, and we'll go this way and then we're going to go back to surfing, because it was a fear of water that led you into surfing. So, but what the trajectory I want to take right now, the chi flow I want to go into is, you mentioned in the book something about the krill.
Yeah.
That one little krill, or they're like little shrimp, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one little movement by the krill. They did research on this cause. They said might, in the essence, could be causing the basic currents of the whole ocean.
Yeah.
Something along that.
One of the tiniest creatures in the ocean. Krill are like 1-2 centimeters long. They're incredibly tiny,
Yeah.
but they're what feed the largest animals out there.
Yes, they do.
A lot of whales
That's,
feed on
they'll
krill.
just scoop them. Yeah.
And there was a researcher who had some krill in his aquarium, in his lab, and he noticed that when they were kicking their little legs, that water was being displaced. And so through the course of his research, him and some colleagues came to the theory that it's possible that these krill in mass are actually influencing and creating the currents in the ocean.
Which is mind-blowing.
It is.
But then you go to make this connection, that if that happens in the water, and if we're in chi out here too, and there's currents and flow, our actions, whether they're the physical actions, the emotional actions, the mental actions, that just, we are influencing the whole.
Yes, the energy that we're carrying into the space that we are creating with ourselves, it's influencing the energy all around us. So if we're walking around in anger and fear, that's projecting out of us, and it's influencing the energy of everybody else, the sea of chi that they're in.
That's right. And we really do feed off of each other. We can't help it. I mean, and you call it, you parallel the unified field with chi, that they're the same, and that's the more physics way of looking at it. That's what I call it sometimes when I'm talking science vocab, but it's all the same. And with so it goes back to self-responsibility, realizing that the more I'm caring for my own stuff, that what I'm putting out there is influencing people it's a positive flow. Right.
Yeah, if you're caring for
if
it.
we're
yeah.
if I'm being self-responsible.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice segue.
Yeah. I know. Why, thank you.
Yeah.
And
you know,
yeah.
so often we're inundated with these ideas and thoughts that we are just one in this huge billions of people on the planet. What difference do I make? right? Well, if one tiny little krill can displace that amount of water, that with its friends, it can change the ocean's currents,
Yes.
you can make a difference too.
In the-
Every single one of us is so powerful in the energy that we bring into the world, and we neglect to find our own strength and inner power and use it to our advantage and the world's advantage.
Right. And use our superpowers for good.
Yes.
We're all superheroes.
Yes.
We need to step into that, right?
You know it.
Yeah. May the force be with us always.
Indeed.
Chi is force. She has another little booklet. It's called Chi Force Training. And I just love that because that's what the Jedis used in Star Wars. That's what the force is. It's Chi.
Yeah, it's exactly the same concept.
It is.
Some people are born, like in Star Wars, some people are born, I'm total sci-fi freak.
Yeah.
Some people are born with more midichlorians or the force
Yes.
in their body, but you can develop more of that. And it's the same with chi. Some people are born with a great connection with energy, but that doesn't mean others can't develop more of a connection with the energy around them so that
Right.
they're aware.
Right. And with the Tai Chi and Qigong practices, even if you don't see it or feel anything, you're still working with Qi. And it can develop over time because I find the more you interact with it and become aware with it and of it and observe it, you will start to feel it, see it, hear it.
The interesting thing on the research about Tai Chi and Qigong is that you don't have to believe in this Qi stuff to get lots of physical benefits out of doing it.
Right.
I find that fascinating. It's not a matter of belief. It just is what it
just
is.
Yeah. But it's just doing the practice.
Yeah, you just have to do it.
And that's part of the being responsible for self and
Yes.
self-care. Okay, so we have to go to another break. And before we do, I'm just going to highlight a badass product called the Body Butters. Talk about self-care. So Body by Brenda. It is brendaswanson.com. These body butters are wonderful, very clean. She uses therapeutic grade essential oils in her different blends, and it's just really good for your skin. She developed it because the stuff she was using just wasn't, she had to keep applying it, and this will actually stay on. It penetrates in, and it heals while it's on. She makes other products too, but I have personal experience with this one, and it is fabulous. So check it out. Body by Brenda. We'll be right back.
Hey there, this is Jesse Hull, and I want to remind you to tune into Business Elite Brevard Edition. And what we do on Business Elite Brevard Edition is bring to you some of the biggest movers and shakers on the Space Coast. These could be industry leaders, tech innovators, and social influencers. And what we do is kind of bring them on, ask them some of the most relevant questions that you may not know about. And these are people who may not be in the news, but they are making moves behind the scenes. Again, tune in. Business Elite Brevard Edition.
Hey guys, I'm Steve Vitani, Brevard resident and realtor with RE/MAX Elite. I'm excited to announce my new very own podcast show, Steve Talks 321. We are on Facebook Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about the most current real estate trends, hot topics, as well as anything along the Space Coast in Brevard County. I'm excited to share all of the latest happenings throughout Brevard County and also to hear from you. Please like this page, Steve Talks 321, and share this page and podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot. I hope to hear from you guys soon.
Okay, we're back. This is Trisha Schmalhofer with BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics. and I'm here with Leah Williamson. She is a badass, an alchemist, and a mystic. There's something you want to say, but before you do, one of my epiphanies when I was reading your book was even the name of this podcast is Yin and Yang. And then there's like a third, there's a whole triune thing of like a third part, like we have polarity, but then there's like this third observing part where they intermingle. It's like the center. This is my thing. But badasses is Yang, right?
Okay.
Because it's the action. You're badass. You're out there doing it.
Okay.
You're doing your thing. That's Yang, right? And then the mystics are the Yin. It's observing nature, learning through mysticism, figuring it out, contemplation, right?
Okay.
The alchemy, right?
Nice.
The alchemy is that third component of the two transforming and dancing together.
Pulling it together.
So this is a Taoist-based podcast.
Awesome.
Bam. So, yeah, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even realize it.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
my
like
aha spiritual awakening moment. So you had said something about for 12 years you studied.
Yeah, you were saying that, it might take a while to feel the chi. And it brought me back to when I first started practicing there. Everyone was talking about this chi stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what this chi stuff is you're talking about. But I feel better when I'm done doing this. But because I felt better doing it, I kept doing it every day for 12 years. It was about 12 years I was doing the Yang short form daily before I started to feel chi. I am kind of a slow learner, I think, but I stuck with it, and I finally developed the sensitivity to the subtleness of that energy, because chi is just very subtle. It's not
subtle.
like all in your face, like we think of, rock band like energy all in your face. Chi is so subtle that you miss it unless you're really observing.
I mean, it can be rock band in your face if
That's
it's used,
true.
if it's being pushed that way, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But in this case, it's when I'm doing energy healing, it is subtle. It's just, but it's the more that you interact with it, and whether it takes a month or 12 years or 50 years, you're still interacting with it. But I find that you start to build a relationship with it.
Yes.
And you start to pick up the little subtles. It almost has a language, I find. It speaks to me, I know what this little feeling is. And
Yeah. You learn how to feel that particular vibe, so to speak, and all the vibration and all that. Feel the vibe, man. All that is we're picking up the energy moving through the sea of chi.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally. You go in a room, okay, that guy's pissed over there. You haven't even talked to that guy, but
Yep.
because his little krill legs,
his energy
are
legs,
getting little anger vibes, and you feel it because it affects the whole room. And guess what? It affects the whole city and the whole. So surfing. So at age 40, that's 40.
It's true.
You decided to learn how to surf.
It's true.
And you were deathly afraid of water your whole life. Terrified of water.
Utterly terrified.
So what on earth made you think, okay, here's something I'm deathly terrified of. I'm going to do it. What provoked that?
That particular point in time, I was turning 40, and people say things change when you reach midlife. Well, apparently they did. I had had enough of this fear. I had had enough of this because, I live in Florida. I see the beautiful ocean all the time, and there's days when it's just so, it looks so refreshing, and I just want to go jump in, and my fear always kept me from doing that. So I always I ran away from any kind of water immersion, But I realized that this fear at 40, I got this insight that fear is maybe not so healthy to embrace, that you need to get over it. And what's the best way to get over your fear? To face it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's one thing to think it, though. Like the philosophy of, oh, yes, my fear, you just go into it. But it's another thing to actually do it. And you did it.
Yeah.
So
it's scary.
So what you met Mercy is her name, right?
Yep.
And it's spelled like MERSEA, which I think is so cool because it's like mermaid of the sea. That's just my take on it. And did you know her already, or did you kind of And you said, "Hey, will you teach me?" Or
kind of, sort of. She understood that I wanted to get over this fear by learning how to surf. So she kind of was my mentor and my surfboard loaner, because she had basically a warehouse full of surfboards. So
she's a lifelong surfer?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
From 7 years old, she started surfing.
Yeah.
True water woman. So she would go out with me just to give me company, help calm my fear a little, knowing that there was someone in the water with me that was a friend. Yeah. So she was great to have on hand.
Well, and in your book, you explain the process of you just started with just standing in water, like up to your knees, and then you went to your waist, and you just were facing your fear, and that's when you started using your breathing techniques.
Yes. So even just putting my feet in the ocean it made me like start to hyperventilate and shiver with fear. That everyone's had something to that effect in their life. So I realized that I had to control this fear, and the best technique I knew to control anything was to deepen my breathing. From Tai Chi and Qigong training, I had lots of breathing techniques that I could use. So I started off just standing in the water, breathing real deep and slow, and then getting deeper and deeper and deeper when I was standing, until eventually I was standing in the ocean with just my head out of the water on days that were really calm, and just standing there for 20 or 30 minutes, just breathing slow and deep. And the more I did that, the more I realized nothing is hurting me. I'm okay. I'm coming out of the water unscathed by some giant monster, You'll be okay. Yeah. So that was the beginning of that process.
There are, you talk about the different fears that people say. You actually did a little impromptu poll on the beach. You said, why have you ever surfed? If no, why? And it's like, and you went through all of those. Like, there's some kind of monster I can't see under here that's going to pull me under, right? I'm going to hit my head on a rock and die. There's sharks. Sharks is a big one.
Yeah.
And
drowning,
just getting hit in the head with a board.
Current pulling you out, riptide, bacteria.
Slamming into another surfer, And you even have a story about Mercy with sharks, that she swam in like a school of sharks, that they come in at certain times of the year, and it's like, you don't highly recommend doing that, but she's a different kind of soul, though, from what you explained.
Yes.
She had a relationship with this sea of chi that was pretty special, and she could even make waves change and things like that, which it reminded me of Jesus, actually, when I read that. Like, she actually went where there was no waves and went out to the Groms. Is that the newbie surfer?
Yeah, where the newbies are. Yeah.
Right? Isn't it cool that I'm telling you what I read in your book? Doesn't it feel good?
Thank you for reading my book.
Yeah, and I really loved it. And so, but it gives you a good feeling, doesn't it? Yeah, it should. Yeah. And so, but the Groms are the newbie surfers, the beginning surfers, and they kept following you because you all kept getting the good waves. And she's like, let me get rid of these kids, And she went over to a patch of water where the waves weren't coming, and she like did a whole thing, and here comes the waves, and they then moved over there, and she came back to you. And I was like, what if that's what Jesus did when he like calmed the storms? It's like, it's about having a relationship with nature.
Yes.
It's observing and interacting and realizing we're all one. It's all chi. And it looks like some kind of, oh my God, that was the weirdest thing. But really, is it weird? You know, that it's yeah, I loved that story, and I'm like, Jesus did the same thing. Like, we do that when we're healing, when we're
I think of her as like a water shaman, but I believe that we are all capable of doing these things and having this relationship with energy. She just had a very intimate relationship with water and the energy of water because she had been in it her entire life and loved it and did never want to be away from it. So she had this intense love and bond with it and developed a relationship with the energy of the ocean. And because of that, learned how to speak with it, and when she asked it, the waves would come.
And darn it, we have to go to another break, but before we do, I want to just, you, over your period of time, once you got over the fear and were dedicated and went out regularly, you started feeling the different currents.
Yes.
Like easing into it and feeling the sea of chi, you know?
Yeah.
So
at first, the fear is so great that's all that it's,
Yeah.
you know, all
In the
it's all
beginning.
encompassing. And it's not really until really in anything that when you can start to relax, that you feel the undercurrents, the nuances of what are going on. You don't get that unless you're relaxed and tuned in to what's going on around you.
Okay, good. So before we go to break, the badass event that's coming up is the Manifesting event, Tasha Chen's event, January 31st to February 2nd in Stuart, Florida. It's really a cool event. If you haven't checked it out, go to themanifestingevent.com to see all the cool speakers she has. It's a lot of fun, and you will get something out of it about how to manifest. Talk about chi, and it's really... She doesn't call it that, but you're really bringing chi to the things that you want to create in your life. So it's really is all chi, isn't it?
Yeah, just under different names.
We'll be right back after this.
All right. This is Doug Monda,
This is Karen Monda.
And Chris Hadaway.
and we're the host of Survive, the new podcast brought to you by the Survive First Foundation, a nonprofit organization assisting first responders and their families in need of mental health support due to the lifestyle of being a first responder. So, Chris, tell us what we're going to have.
We're coming to you from retired and active law enforcement officers as well as their spouses to discuss the responder life.
Don't forget, this is an unedited and raw podcast, so we need your interactive suggestions and advice to help us help others.
So find us live on our Survive First Facebook page and join in the conversation, or find us on demand on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to podcasts from the Space Coast Podcast Network to you.
We are back. Bam. Badasses, Alchemist, Mystics. This is Trisha Schmalhofer with Leah Williamson. And we're talking about her new book, Surfing the Sea of Chi. And in your book, you have a quote, and I believe you wrote these words, and I love this quote to death. So it was about the masters. They all understood the Tao. And the quote is, "The ancient masters of mind-body have left us a treasure trove of self-healing biotechnology based on the high science of objectively observing the natural world."
Yes.
Leah Williamson wrote that. So, observing the natural world.
Yes.
That's what all the ancients did.
Yep.
And-
Nothing to take up time. No internet, no insurance to shop
No.
for. So
Not
just
all that
observing
yang
nature.
stimulation. And that is science. That's the basis of the scientific method is
Yes.
observation. So it is science. People are like, oh yeah, that old stuff. No, that's science. It is science.
In fact, the ancient Taoists are credited with coming up with the first anesthesia.
Yes, I read. So, it really all is dancing together. And I really feel like if we're going to move forward with health and medicine, that we have to really embrace that it is all dancing together. All of it has to be working together. So with surfing, this whole thing about observing the natural world, surfing is very yin and yang, because you see the surfing that you see advertised. It's like on the wave, in the curl or whatever. And, it's like the action, it's the coolness, right? Yeah. And the paddling and the actual surfing is very yang, but most of the time with surfing, you are sitting out there on your board waiting.
Yeah.
Observing. It's yin.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a lot of your downloads and even little notes that you wrote for this book occurred during those yin times of surfing.
Yeah, that's when I would have my aha moments. It wasn't when I got this incredible energy rush from catching a great ride. It was after that. It was when I was just sitting there waiting for another wave, looking around, enjoying the birds and the soft, gentle drifting in the sea, that all of a sudden these amazing thoughts would come into my mind in that floaty, drifty, still meditative place where you're not thinking about anything at all. And then that powerful energy, that wisdom comes to you from deep, from the source.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then a wave comes, and then it's like that energy manifested, and then you're riding it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the yang. It's like, yeah. And so that's life. And I was thinking back, because you talk a lot about environmentalism, because when you're out there in the water, you're seeing the plastics, you're seeing seagulls eat cigarette butts, and you're seeing the what's happening with the planet. And the more you observe nature and become part of nature, I mean, we're already a part of nature, but once you're really like sinking into that, you really do feel the pains, of nature. And it was bringing me back to a time in my life. I didn't have a car for 7 years. I know. It broke down. I didn't have a lot of money, so I walked everywhere. I rode the bus. I didn't even ride a bike. I found like one of these little Razor scooters someone was throwing away that still worked, and I'd like take that with me on the bus, and I'd be zipping through a neighborhood going to work. Those were some of the best times of my life. And I'll tell you, I was fit, I was healthy, and I observed things. Because I would see like, oh my gosh, look at all that stuff people throw out at the side of the road. I'd find money all the time because you're actually looking down. I would keep track of what's happening in the community, because I actually could see what was being built, or who had a new dog, or I don't know. It's like it forced me to be more yin, slow down, and actually observe. And that is when I got a lot of downloads and just feelings of contentment and connection.
Nice.
And even just riding the bus, I mean, that's a whole nother planet. But I made so many like cool friends. They were like my bus family, because every morning there we were, and we wait at the bus stop. It's a lot of waiting with riding the bus.
Yeah.
A lot of waiting
Around here, yeah.
So it brought me back to that time in my life, that even though I wasn't surfing, it was still causing me to slow down and observe and see things from a different perspective.
I think the key there is the slowing down. So many people say, I've got to just slow down my life. Things are going too fast. But they don't do the things that actually slow them down, like moving slower, like in Tai Chi. That literally physically slows you down. And when you physically slow down what you're doing, your whole life slows down. and becomes a little calmer and more manageable.
It does.
Yeah, and when you're riding the razor, you're much slower
My
than
little
when you're
razor.
in you're much slower than when you're in a car. So you see more. The faster you go, the less you see, the less you can observe. That's why in Qigong and Tai Chi we move very slow to observe what's going on within us.
The body. Yeah.
Not just the body, but with the chi energy that's moving through us too. We connect more with our energy and more with our physical selves. When we're always going, rushing here, there, and everywhere, we don't even know where our feet are touching the ground sometimes because we're thinking about the external as opposed to what our physical selves are doing.
We're not in our body most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, because taking a breath, that's why breathing is one of the foundational things of your practice. It's because when you breathe, it brings you into your body. Because when we're not in there, we're usually out here. What's that? Well, you know, future, past. So just taking that deep cleansing breath, bringing spirit into the body, chi in. It's like, okay, oh, there's that body. There's those legs.
Yeah. Everybody has that experience. You take a big, deep breath in.
That's the cleansing breath.
And you just feel better. You feel your body more, and you feel better in it just by breathing deeper.
Right. And you have, we have a few minutes, and you have 6 essential something or other.
Oh, yeah.
6 essentials by Leah Williamson. So these are the 6. Breathing. Very important. Posture.
Because posture is the key to health.
It really is.
It's a huge deal. If you don't hold your posture right, your organs don't work right, your brain doesn't function as well as it should. Big deal, posture.
And being a body worker, fascia they're just doing a lot of research with connective tissue. It has like a putty property. So if you're slouching, the fascia actually starts to remold into that dysfunctional shape. So the more straight you are, the more aligned your fascia is, which surrounds everything.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a theory that that's fascia is the avenue it goes through the body, but that's just my theory. Just want to throw that out there. You heard it here first. No, there's actually research about it. Food is number 3.
Yeah, everybody has to eat, right?
Yeah.
So
and trying to pick the cleanest you can, or, you know, there's so many fad diets and stuff. I've been doing like intuitive food choice. Like, what do you need today?
Yeah.
What do you need?
Because every day your body needs something different because you're living in a completely different body every single day. Yeah.
It is. Clothing.
Hopefully everybody's clothed when they're walking around in public.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I'm home, it's a whole other thing.
What we wear makes a big difference not only to ourselves, but to our local community and to the world in general. If we're always buying the cheapest possible clothes we can at the super discount store, chances are those clothes are coming from factories where women and children are getting paid absolutely nothing and working in horrible conditions. So what you wear makes a huge difference in the world, what you choose to buy.
Right. And you can get like very decent clothes at secondhand stores.
Totally.
Yeah, I found brand new things there before too. Shelter. Where you live. I mean, that's one of the 6 essentials. You have to have a safe shelter.
And it's really important to life. Everyone has to have that. And we can choose to live in a residence that's sucking lots of energy off of the grid more than maybe we personally need to consume to stay alive, or we can choose to live a little more sustainably in our residences, getting rid of toxic chemicals in them. There's so many things about where we live, how it affects us personally and the world in general.
Yeah, I'm doing like a lot of improvements on my little cottage in the woods right now. It's like I'm putting money into her, you know, to make her happy, because I believe she has a consciousness too. And hey, cheese everywhere, right? And the last thing is transportation. So we just talked, like I rode the bus for all those years. I walked everywhere, riding your bike when you can, you know, maybe go to the store, just ride your bike or share a car. You
We
know?
all know that there's problems going on environmentally with the planet, and the more that we can curb our carbon emissions, the more impact we have. We can join with other little krill who are doing the same
right.
and have
That's
bigger
right.
impact.
Whether
Yeah.
you buy into global warming or not, it's still is being self-responsible to at least use the least amount that you can that still is giving you the kind of life that you want to live. You know, there's a balance.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're out of time. But I think that if I had to pick a word, it'd be balance. That kind of sums everything up. It's balance in the yin, the yang, and well, if I had to pick 2 words or 3, self-responsibility too. It's being responsible and staying as balanced as you can to.
Yeah, we can't have other people taking care of everything for us. It's up to us. This is our world.
It is.
We should be responsible for it.
It is. And Chi allows that to happen.
Yeah.
Chi is what connects us.
Our energy, yeah.
Leah, I hate to
Trisha.
say goodbye.
This was fun. It went so fast.
I know. I could talk another hour or 2 or 3. We'll have to have coffee soon.
Cool.
So, Leah, it is Qigong. Wait, what's your website?
BeachsideQigong.com.
Okay, and her book again is Surfing the Sea of Chi. You can get it on Amazon and
Barnes and Noble.
And Barnes and Noble. Oh,
And
it's in Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
Cool.
and through Indigo River Publishing, who's my publisher.
Okay, there you go. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. We're going to have Leslie Marlar on next episode talking about the astrology of 2020. She's been doing it for 30 plus years. It's going to be fun. See you next time.